In the last episode, we finished building this incredible ground space station and officially set foot on the moon for the first time. It marked a major turning point in our progression and unlocked a whole new range of possibilities. Even then, the journey is far from over, and there's still a lot left for us to accomplish. Today's journey takes us beyond the safety of our base and into the unknown. Our goal is to explore the moon, uncover its hidden mysteries, and gather the resources needed for the next stage of progression. Back on Earth, we'll also be expanding our industrial capabilities with a powerful iron farm and a dedicated copper farm. Hey, Future Bishop here while editing. I've decided to make a second part for the copper farm. Otherwise, this video would have taken forever to upload. Sorry about that. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and some parts are definitely going to be challenging. But if we've made it this far, I'm sure we'll make it through this as well. Now that we know what needs to be done, there's only one thing left to do: get to work. If you didn't see my last video, I made a long play where I decorated the area around the station and built pathways leading from the house all the way here. You should definitely check it out. So as promised, I went to the moon. One of the first structures I spotted on the moon looked like some kind of lunar restaurant. The strange part was that it appeared completely abandoned, which made me even more curious to explore it. The second structure I found was this nuclear station, and it turned out to be a very important discovery. These buildings contained blazes, making them incredibly valuable for future progression. Just as I was about to reach the restaurant and start exploring it, the game decided to crash.
One eternity later.
Thankfully, the crash didn't corrupt my save or erase any progress. And trust me, that's not always the case. I've had plenty of crashes in the past that ended up costing me hours of work. So once I arrived at Mike's, I quickly noticed a ton of useful create mod components scattered around the place. Some of these items are fairly expensive or time consuming to craft. So naturally, I took everything I could get my hands on. And by the time I finished looting the place, night was beginning to fall. The problem is that nights on the moon are incredibly dangerous. The mobs that spawn there can attack from a distance and hit surprisingly hard, so rather than taking any chances, I headed back to the overworld and slept through the night. And when the sun finally rose, it was time to head back to the moon and continue the expedition. To make sure I didn't lose the portal, I marked its location on the map. With that done, it was finally time to take a closer look at the nuclear station. And honestly, I don't know if I got lucky or not, but this one turned out to be a shimmer variant. Normally, these stations contain lava lakes inside, but this one had a shimmer lakes instead. I have no idea how rare that is, but it definitely felt like a pretty lucky find. So these are the places where the blazes spawn. I'm probably gonna steal one of these spawners later. And for those who haven't played this mod pack, getting to the nether is impossible. If you try to build and activate a nether portal, it won't do anything. It's basically the same as making a glowstone portal frame and putting water inside it. Useless. So that's why most of the resources you normally find in the nether have been relocated to the moon instead. Anyway, these structures are packed with valuable loot, so I spent some time exploring every corner and collecting anything that looked useful. While exploring, I also came across a few stone meteorites scattered across the moon. From what I understand, these meteorites contain components related to a storage system that introduced later in the mod pack. There's even an entire quest chapter dedicated to it, but that's something we'll save for another episode. Now it was time to explore one of these alien mazes, and trust me, I call them mazes for a reason. These underground alien bases are made up of countless corridors, rooms, and intersections, making them incredibly easy to get lost in. So after looting the place and getting lost more times than I'd like to admit, I eventually managed to find my way back out, and since night had already fallen on the moon, I decided to return home. I had looted so much stuff that even my backpack was full, so I had to clean it out. I even got some moon ores, which will be very useful later on. And now that I finally had access to soul sand, I could complete the fan setup that had been sitting unfinished for quite some time. So now we can make infinite soul sand using sand, which is going to be a must-have for future factories. And another great benefit is that we can now craft soul torches. Since there's no oxygen on the moon, regular torches simply don't work there. If you want a reliable source of light during lunar exploration, soul torches are pretty much a necessity. Now it was time to work on blaze burners, but first I needed to make an empty blaze burner, and for that I needed netherrack. And remember what I said earlier, getting to the nether is impossible, but luckily there's still a way to make some. And the way to get it is by bulk hunting soul sand, and just like that we now had an empty blaze burner. With that done, we just needed to catch a blaze and lock him up in a cage for the rest of his life. Blaze burners are essentially the heart of this entire chapter. They're required for a huge number of recipes, including one of the most important resources in Create, brass. So this chapter is a major milestone in our progression. It's the one that will eventually lead us to Mars. And unlike the moon, we won't be getting there through a portal. We'll have to build and launch an actual rocket. Needless to say, I'm pretty excited about what's coming next. So the first quest was to get a blaze rod, which was pretty easy to do. And while we were at it, we'd take our blaze back to his new jail cell. And while I was already on the moon, I decided to spend some time scouting the surrounding area to see what other structures were nearby. That's when I came across this strange building that looked like some kind of nuclear delivery station. So I grabbed everything that looked worth taking. And as I continued exploring the structure, I came across something unexpected, a few dead bodies. So, being the curious person that I am, I got closer to see what had killed them, and then... It was so obvious, and I barely survived. I was so scared of dying that I went straight back to my base. And I placed my spacesuit on an armor stand, knowing that I wouldn't be returning to the moon anytime soon. For now, it was time to shift my focus toward a much more practical project, the iron farm. And for those of you who are about to point out that I already have an iron farm, you are absolutely right. The problem is that the one I currently use just isn't efficient enough anymore. It's located too far away from my main base, which means the chunks aren't always loaded and the factory often stops working when I'm not nearby. The production rate simply isn't keeping up with my growing demand for iron, so that's why we're going to need a better farm. And the good news is that it's built using tuff, which is surprisingly easy to obtain. All we have to do is mix basalt and cobblestone together, and we'll have everything we need to get started. And to take things a step further, I decided to start producing brass. Not only is it a key resource for progression, but having a steady supply will make every brass related recipe much easier to craft moving forward. But before I could make any brass, I first had to melt down both the copper and the zinc. Once they were in liquid form, I could combine them together to create molten brass. And after that, I just needed to use an ingot cast to turn the molten brass into ingots. Now that everything was finally ready, the only thing left to do was gather all the materials for the build. I actually took care of that part during a live stream. So if you'd like to hang out, chat and watch some of the behind the scenes grinding, make sure to keep an eye out for future streams. And while we're on the topic, I'm now streaming on Twitch as well. Any contents that isn't related to Minecraft, including other games, will be streamed over there instead. You'll find the link in the description below. Also, if you ever miss a stream, don't worry. All of my VODs are uploaded to my second channel, so you can always catch up later. Alright, let's roll the time lapse. What a build! The interior is still looking a little empty for now, but we'll tackle that in a future stream. Even so, I'm really happy with how the structure turned out. And while gathering materials during the streams, I also spent some time decorating the exterior area on the second floor of the station. It completely transformed the space, and honestly, it looks so much better now. And while I was browsing through the quest book, I discovered that the Shimmer Heart isn't just a crafting material, it's actually used to summon a creature. So apparently, this is the kind of creature you're not supposed to awaken. And if you do decide to wake it up, let's just say it's not going to be very happy about it. We're definitely not prepared to fight something like that yet, but one thing is certain, someday we're coming back for it. And while I was streaming, I also prepared everything needed to build the proper elevator to the station. Up until now, the only way to get there was by climbing a waterfall every single time, which got old pretty quickly. So I decided it was finally time to replace it with something a lot more practical. I just needed to glue the entire structure together and figure out a way to power the elevator. With a chaotic mess of cogwheels and shafts, I managed to route power from the laboratory's water wheels all the way to the elevator. It worked, but the speed was pretty disappointing. And to make things even worse, I accidentally glued the entire terrain underneath the elevator. So after reworking the glue setup and adding yet another mess of cogwheels, I think it's finally safe to say that the elevator is complete. Now it was time to figure out how I was going to build a basalt generator for the iron farm. Luckily, producing basalt is very similar to making a regular cobblestone generator. The only difference is that instead of water, you use blue ice. To make blue ice, I needed 9 packed ice. To make packed ice, I had to wash regular ice, which is made by mixing snowballs with water. I said ice way too many times in that sentence. So in order to get the snowballs, I had to step out of my comfort zone and venture off in search of a snowy biome. Luckily, it wasn't too far from the base, so if I ever need more, getting it won't be too much of a hassle. So I didn't waste any time and gathered as much as I could carry. And that's when I ran into a very angry bear. Not wanting any trouble, I decided to leave them alone and continue on my way. And with a full shulker box packed with snowballs, it was finally time to head back home. I put together a quick setup using my rose gold machine, and before long, I had produced plenty of ice. After finally producing the blue ice, it was time to start working on the machine. But, as luck would have it, I ran out of iron almost immediately and needed a lot more to continue. So I made another trip to the moon in hopes of finding a fresh supply. I didn't find any iron, but I found out that these structures contain a lot of create items, so I pretty much took everything. I also found out that the thing that almost killed me had a really nice item inside it. I was really surprised to see that these were Tesla coils. They'll help us automate a lot of things, and because they're pretty expensive to craft, I was very happy to find them. So I spent some time searching the area for iron, but no matter where I looked, I couldn't find much. Rather than wasting more time on the moon, I decided to focus on gathering anything else that might be useful before heading back to base with a rather disappointing total of just 3 iron. And back at my first iron factory, it had produced a total of 27 iron, which was the perfect amount for what I needed. With everything set up, we could finally start building the iron farm. The plan was to put the stone generators at the top of the tower and let the materials fall through the different processing machines. Once they reach the bottom floor, they will be fully processed into iron. So first I needed some iron vaults to make sure nothing overflowed. Then I just had to build the generators on top of them. Then I added a few funnels to pull the stone out of the vaults and let it drop into the next machine in the production line. From there, the stone will fall onto these conveyor belts and be carried directly into the basins, where it will be mixed into tuff. After that, it would fall into the milestone and be crushed into iron nuggets. Then it would fall onto another set of belts and be compressed into iron ingots. After that, I just needed to find a way to power everything, and the factory will be finished. After spending nearly an hour connecting everything together, I finally managed to power the entire factory using 16 water wheels. The only thing left to do now was craft a rotational speed controller. And after crafting it, I returned to the factory and finally brought the entire system to life. Before unleashing the factory's full potential, I carefully inspected every conveyor belt to ensure that each one was moving exactly as intended. One mistake at high speed could have brought the entire system to a halt. Now that I knew every belt was working correctly, it was finally time to increase the speed and let the factory run at full capacity. With everything finally up and running, we now have a fully optimized iron farm producing an iron ingot every 7 seconds. Things are going to be so much easier from now on. So that's going to be the end of today's episode. I know it took me quite a while to get this one out, and I want to apologize to everyone who has been waiting for it. Building these projects and editing the videos takes a huge amount of time, but I hope it was worth the wait. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I also wanted to let you know that I've created a Discord server where you can hang out with me and other members of the community. The link will be in the description below. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in part 2. Bye guys.